Wars and rumors of war. This is SkyWatchTV News for Thursday, July 16th, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. Of course, that's an aspect of end times prophecy, and there is plenty in that category to talk about today. First, in Iraq, government troops are trying to retake the city of Fallujah, where so many American soldiers lost their lives. But tens of thousands of people in Fallujah caught between the government troops and the Islamic State. ISIS forces have stolen or taken the identity papers from as many as 50,000 people there, making it impossible for them to travel, essentially turning them into human shields in this battle. Now, for their part, the Iraqi government, which is mainly Shia Islam, is suspicious of the loyalty of the people in Fallujah, which is in Anbar province, where the residents' people are mainly Sunni Islam. We're looking at another humanitarian crisis developing in western Iraq. He's caught a lot of criticism, but you can say at least this about the nuclear deal that President Obama announced with Iran this week. He's managed to find a way to bring Israel and Saudi Arabia together. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, has called this deal a historic mistake. The Saudis see Iran as their main competitors for influence in the Arab world, in the Middle East, and they are currently fighting two proxy wars with Iran, one in Syria, the other in Yemen. There's one aspect of the deal with Iran that wasn't mentioned by the president or the administration until he was asked about it rather directly by reporter Major Garrett of CBS News.
As you well know, there are 4 Americans in Iran, 3 held on trumped-up charges, according to your administration, 1 whereabouts unknown. Can you tell the country, sir, why you are content with all the fanfare around this deal to leave the conscience of this nation and the strength of this nation unaccounted for in relation to these 4 Americans? And last week, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said under no circumstances should there be any relief for Iran in terms of ballistic missiles or conventional weapons. It is perceived that that was a last-minute capitulation in these negotiations. Many in the Pentagon feel you've left the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff hung out to dry. Could you comment?
I got to give you credit, Major, for how you craft those questions. For the notion that I'm content as I celebrate with American citizens languishing in Iranian jails? Major, that's nonsense.
Ooh. The 4 Americans held by Iran. Retired FBI agent Robert Levinson, who disappeared in 2007 while admittedly on an assignment for the CIA, an undercover assignment. He is considered missing. Family has not heard from him in several years. Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian, jailed for the last 11 months. Former Marine Amir Hekmati, who's been imprisoned in Iran since 2011. And of course, Pastor Saeed Abedini, who was sentenced to 8 years in prison back in January of 2013 by the government in Iran for undermining national security. His crime? Establishing Christian house churches in Iran. However, analysts looking at the geopolitical situation around the world agree that our biggest worry is not Iran nor the Islamic State, but Russia. Robert Dannenberg, a 24-year CIA veteran and current analyst for the investment bank Goldman Sachs, says that things are extremely dangerous right now. NATO and Russia, he says, both with substantial military activity in Eastern Europe in close proximity to one another. He says this leads to a high risk for an unintended escalation of hostilities, mainly due to the situation in Ukraine, where, by the way, Russian-backed rebels have launched one of its heaviest attacks on government forces since a ceasefire broke down in February. Author and prophecy teacher Doug Woodward says that there's another factor that could lead to an escalation, in fact, war between Russia and the United States.
Russia has had to live with nuclear missiles on its borders, where they're basically 7 minutes from Moscow. You know, they've had to live with that 50 years. And we didn't like living with it when they were 90 miles away from us in Cuba. And there is, in fact, then this sort of, the same kind of fear. It's kind of like, hey, you guys should have a taste of your own medicine. But the other thing is that there's 2 or 3 other real important dynamics here. One is that that's been 50 some years ago. So almost everyone that was alive and has a pretty vivid memory of that, those that are like 60, basically 60 and older, we kind of remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. We kind of remember calculating how far it was and all that. Most of the folks that run this country now don't have that memory, and the same holds true to a great extent in Russia. So there's not a memory of the fear of brinkmanship, of using nuclear weapons as a way to play chess. Mm-hmm. And so there's that factor. There's another factor, that the nature of the nuclear weapon itself has changed. It's more controllable. It's more targetable. It's scaled based upon the size that's needed for a particular blast. So your tactical nukes can be 2 to 20 kilotons, let's say. They can be packaged up in suitcases, or they can be delivered with artillery shells. These things were all tested back in the late 50s and 60s, and so the technology's been around. But it's one of the factors, though, that just the packaging and the production of these things, it makes both sides believe that the threshold for going nuclear has been reduced dramatically. So the potential to use nuclear weapons in the minds of our military, in the minds of their military, it doesn't hold the same sort of fear and trauma that it did for us back in the Cold War, back in the 60s.
Doug is the author of the forthcoming book, Is Russia Destined to Nuke the U.S.? And his article, Why the Ukraine Conflict Could Lead to World War III, is published in this month's issue of SkyWatch Magazine, which is posted for you to read for free online at skywatchtv.com. You can also hear a 1-hour interview with Doug about this topic, the nuclear threat posed by Russia, on my podcast, A View from the Bunker. You can find that online at vftb.net. Violence in Greece as people there protest terms of proposed austerity measures. These measures required by the Eurozone as a condition to continue negotiations for a proposed bailout. Now, this may not lead to anything. Greece may still crash out of the Eurozone. People in Greece upset because the terms of this deal are more harsh than the ones they rejected in a national referendum a week ago Sunday. Stocks in the U.S. have jumped on news that the Greek government has agreed to these austerity measures. But again, this doesn't mean that a bailout of Greece is coming. It means that negotiations for a possible bailout can continue. And the bailout probably won't be a bailout. It will be more debt added to the debt that Greece is already finding impossible to pay. One investment analyst says that most people are missing the forest for the trees in all of this, that there is a bigger threat to the global economy than Greece leaving the Eurozone. You see, the Greece situation pushes the value of the euro lower against the dollar. Since the euro is used to value the dollar in international trade, the value of the dollar, of course, increases. Now, that puts pressure on people who've borrowed dollars to invest, which is often done with a lot of leverage. Meaning, in other words, if you've got a dollar in the bank, some high-powered investment firms can take that dollar and use it to borrow $100, $200, $300. Now, this is called the carry trade. And understand, I've only got an undergraduate degree in economics, so I'm barely getting my head around this. The carry trade is where you borrow a currency in a country with a low rate of interest. You convert it to a currency in a nation where there is a high rate of interest, and you use that to invest in bonds in that second nation. The problem is when the value of the currency that you've borrowed changes. If it increases rapidly, you've got a problem. The problem is that the U.S. dollar carry trade is right now more than $9 trillion. That's more than the combined annual output of the economies of Germany and Japan combined. If the dollar rallies, which this investor believes, this analyst believes will happen, it could destroy this $9 trillion carry trade, or this $9 trillion in outstanding shorts, which he says is basically what triggered the Great Recession in 2008. We don't know where this is going to lead. It's impossible to predict. And again, I've only got an undergraduate degree in economics, so certainly don't take my advice as the basis for investing. But we will keep an eye on this and watch what happens. Again, the basic message here, try to get out of debt as quickly as you can in order to prepare for what may lie ahead. Here at SkyWatch Magazine, we've managed to pull together a collection of articles from really smart people, and somehow managed to include one of mine in amongst this group as well. This month, as mentioned, Doug Woodward's article about the situation in Ukraine and how it could lead to something more serious, but also articles by Doug Krieger rather, Josh Peck, Doug Overmeyer of Sears Sea Ministry, and Sharon Gilbert, my lovely wife, who is beginning a new series called Icon, Engineering a New God, talking about the transhumanist movement. Of course, another installment in Tom Horn's series Inhuman, which leads up to the release of the documentary film Inhuman from Defender Films and SkyWatch TV. And Sharon's also included the next installment of her supernatural thriller, Something New, Fiction, at Skywatch Magazine. Her thriller called Skinwalkers. All of that posted at skywatchtv.com/Skywatch Magazine, or just log on to skywatchtv.com and you'll see the link to the free magazine in the top menu bar. It's well worth the time to read. This week, fascinating discussion with Gary Stearman, author of the book Time Travelers of the Bible, How the Hebrew Prophets Shattered the Barriers of Time-Space. Part 2 of that interview comes up this coming Tuesday night on the Christian Television Network. But the great news is, if you missed it during that 30-minute period where it was on the Christian Television Network, you can watch it at any time that's convenient for you on the SkyWatch TV Roku channel. We've also got the video posted to skywatchtv.com. But if you've got the Roku channel, you can watch it on the big screen. If you have a Roku account, log on, search for SkyWatch TV in the Roku channel store, or you can log on to skywatchtv.com/Roku for instructions on how to add that to your account. Your support is key to us here at SkyWatch TV, and during the month of July, we're offering as our thank you to you for your financial gift of $10 or more, the Dr. Gary Smalley book, I Promise, How 5 Commitments Determine the Destiny of Your Marriage. It's an important book, especially in this day and time. And again, our gift to you in exchange for your gift to us of $10 or more, and instructions posted at skywatchtv.com. Comments, questions, suggestions? I welcome them all. Please send them to me at dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. Thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.